This is a multi-trillion-dollar industry that people are being inefficient on. People, if they get clear on where they want to go and you help them understand how they're looking at their debt, where they're saving their money, where they're investing, the money that they're making, they're going to realize that their money is not reflecting where they want to go. And efficiency would say, let's put that in a place. Let's get that working for you in a way that you can live the life that you want to live.
Here and today in this episode, we are very excited to, introduce to you a very dear friend, and he became a good mentor of us. This gentleman is already in his mid-20s, and
Look like I'm 15, but I am over 20, I promise. Yeah.
But he is making a huge impact in people's lives, and we'd like for you to get to know him a little bit more in this episode. He is the founder and the CEO of BetterWealth, and also the author of the An Asset book. And we are so excited to get to know him more today. And so, hey, Caleb, how are you doing today?
I'm doing phenomenal. It is an honor to be here, and I'm proud and excited to see where this channel and podcast goes. And so, thank you for having me on as a guest.
Yes, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it so much. So, just to start off this podcast, can you just share with us your story, your upbringing, and what God has done in your life up to this point?
Yeah. So, a lot of times when I ask for someone's story, I'll say, "How did your parents meet?" And it usually gives me a perspective. And so my parents met at a Christian camp. My mom was super extroverted. My dad was super introverted, but played the guitar. And so my mom needed someone to lead worship. So she was like, "Hey, why don't you come?" And that's how I think that built a friendship, and they ended up getting married. I grew up in central Wisconsin. I'm the oldest of 6 kids. I was homeschooled all the way through, which is very unique. Both of my parents are believers. My dad very much loves to worship through research and studying God's word, and my mom is probably more of the hands and feet on the ground, encouraging, and is a leader in the homeschooling group, and just very like the extrovert. And so what I like to say is I have the best of both worlds. I have a little bit of my dad, introverted, want to see what's going on, want to see the numbers, love research, but I very much communicate more like my mom in relationships and more I'm a feeler. And so what was interesting is I grew up in an amazing house where we read the Bible. I got to go to Israel twice before the age of 18. I was baptized in the Sea of Galilee. And so all those things were amazing. I would say I really took my faith seriously when I was about 12 years old. I remember the moment where I just like thought before I go to bed, I just had this realization of like, you know what? I've been obedient to my parents. But I have not, like, if they both went away, would I serve God, and would I be a Christian? And I realized, like, yes, even if everything got stripped away, I would still be a believer. And so I remember getting on my hands and knees and just being like, God, I just want to dedicate my life. And so was that the day? I don't really know, but I know that that was a memorable moment. And then throughout my high school and college, I was so blessed by mentors that encouraged me. Was very involved in college when it comes to Campus Crusade, did a lot of missions, and that all of that built me to be the person I am today. From a business perspective, I got a job at a chicken farm, and that was like one of my first jobs, and I started making money, and I was fascinated with how money works, and then that translated into working at a bank when I was 17, and then I ended up taking over the bank's investment department when I was 19 years old. And why that's significant is no one ever, I don't think, not that I know of, has had that ability or responsibility. And so on one hand, I felt really honored and excited. And on another hand, I was super underqualified, overwhelmed, and I just experienced the horror that people felt when they walked in and met me for the first time. And so I just remember like committing to myself that I was going to do everything that I could to help people. And that was very motivating for me. And then just through learning about just taxes and life insurance and efficiency and investing, I realized that what we've been taught about money is kind of a shame if you think about what people know about money and what they've been taught about money. And I was willing to ask hard questions, and I didn't care about money. I still don't care about money to this day. Like I want to be a seeker of truth. And I realized that there were so many things that I started learning about money that I couldn't unlearn. And so I ended up at 21 years old. I graduated college a year early. I stayed at home to save up money, started BetterWealth. Our first office, we started very humble beginnings. And I started with two people that really believed in the mission of why we were doing it, which was essentially to help people see and reach their highest potential. And then from there, that's when I wrote the book, The And Asset, which we can talk about. That's when I became obsessed with efficiency. That's when I really doubled down on frameworks. That's when I started the podcast, started speaking. And from there, it was like it just took off. I think early on, we were doing everything. And then all this content, all this hard work paid off. And now I'm coming from you in Colorado. I got to marry the love of my life 6+ months ago. We have a team of 15. We have clients in all 50 states, and we've been able to just serve people and help them take back control. And so that's the story. It didn't happen overnight, but that gives you a little bit of context of who you're listening to.
Yeah, thank you so much. You mentioned homeschooling. Could you share it? So you've never gone to public school at all, just like straight homeschool from
yeah.
beginning.
Yeah, so I was homeschooled, and I promise you I'm not socially awkward. I hope not. I'm probably a little bit sheltered, which I'm grateful for. But that's my upbringing. My mom especially was very intentional with getting me friends. And so not only were my siblings some of my best friends, but I interacted with people older than me, younger than me, and there was not a shortage of community. That's what I would say is, if you're going to homeschool your kids, and I think there's a lot of reasons why you would want to homeschool your kids, if you're going to do that, understand that the social side is super important, and be very intentional to make sure that your kids can interact with older, their same age, and younger. Because I think some of what I learned there is far more important than learning geometry and chemistry and quite frankly, all the things that I can't tell you today. But the person I am is the character that I learned, and the leadership skills, and learning how I learned. And that was probably the best thing that I learned from being homeschooled is I was naturally proactive because I had to be, and I learned how I learned. So I can go into any field, whether it's in the insurance industry, the tax industry, the money industry, and I know how I learn, which is a huge superpower, because I realize that not everyone is that blessed or fortunate. And so they're kind of at the mercy of having someone else explain it to them. And so as I look back, that was one of the biggest blessings from being homeschooled.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because I think this day and age, right? Homeschooling is an option that people need to explore, right? And we've explored that option 7-8 years ago, and I think we just be grateful for that journey, right? Yeah, that's awesome. So also you mentioned about at 19 running the investment department at a local bank. So that is in Wisconsin, correct?
Yeah.
And what were some of your observation, some of the things that you realized in terms of traditional financial planning versus what was the lesson that you learned during that time?
Yeah, the lesson was, a lot of people have products that are not serving them for their goals in the future. The other thing that really was shocking to me is very few people know what they actually want, and they can't really articulate why they're doing what they're doing and how that will translate into results, which is what they want. And so it was just interesting, because I was super underqualified. I didn't know much about money, but I realized that it was like, okay, nobody knows what's going on. Nobody. And so I just started asking people, why do you do what you do? And if money wasn't an issue, what would you be doing? And how do you articulate why you get up every day? And people would kind of look at me with I had 3 heads, and they're like, wait, aren't you the money person? And I'm like, yes, exactly. How in the world are you supposed to make a decision on money if you don't know why you do what you do? So it's funny, because it's like a 19-year-old kid connected the dots, whereas I think a lot of financial advisors spend their whole life not connecting that dot. But I did that out of necessity, because I didn't know a lot about the industry. I needed to go back and say, okay, how can I provide value? And then from there, I just learned a ton about money. And I'm just grateful for that time, because at the bank, I was given the platform, I was given at bats, and I had some phenomenal people that poured into my life and that were patient. And it was just through the 2+ years of being in the trenches where it gave me a ton of perspective and at bats. And I'm grateful for that because I think a lot of people that get into this industry don't have that. And so they start with maybe their friends or family. And it's just tough because sometimes you just learn by having years of conversations and seeing trends. And so I definitely was very grateful for that. But it definitely was a lot of work. And I think the most important thing when you're working with someone with their money is like, can you be trusted? And is someone better off having you be in their life? I'm a big fan of coaching, as you guys know, and it's way more than just the money. Like, how does our money and our heart connect together and translate into results?
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I think I'm gonna hand it over to maybe the Tang and Cam. You guys have the next question for Caleb? Don't forget to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yes. Hi, Caleb. It's so good to see you again.
Great seeing you.
Always great to hear from you, from your podcast to your YouTube videos. We are big fans. I have a couple of questions lined up for you. I guess the first one is, let's see. I have it written down. So the And Asset movie, could you share the why behind the project and when we can expect to see that movie and what hopes you have for that movie?
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm a big fan of is this concept called value leveraging. And the concept of value leveraging, it's very much like a framework, is you have to provide value. Money follows value, and another word for value is results. And so if you think about it, like, the value needs to be there, but then leverage is the platform. It's the going one to many. One of the definitions of leverage is maximize. And so when we talk about the and asset, the concept of the and asset is the life insurance strategy that I wrote a book on. And it's this whole concept of, instead of looking at life insurance as an expense, look at it as an asset, overfund it, which means you're maximizing all the cash benefits and you're actually minimizing the actual insurance benefits. And when that's set up and used properly, it's an amazing foundational asset where your money will grow the rest of your life. You can utilize the capital. It can show up powerfully for the future. It can protect you and your family. That asset can help you save more. And ultimately, if you understand the power of that, it can translate into you showing up powerfully as your number one asset. The book that I wrote in 2018, which I think simplifies the concept, especially of the power of your money growing and being able to use, was a great door opener. I've learned so much from when I wrote that to now, and I realized, like, there's experts in the retirement space, there's experts in the entrepreneur space, there's experts in the like guru compounding space, there's experts in the estate planning space. They're all saying stuff, but there's nobody tying this all together. And so the purpose of the movie is to number one, not everyone reads, but then number two, articulate a concept that's hard to understand. Like, life insurance, especially overfunded, giving it multiple jobs, is not an easy concept to understand. We understand you put your money in this account, it earns 8%. I understand that. It's hard to be like, what's the true value of an asset that does that and gives you the ability to access capital while your money continues to grow? Now it's hard to measure. It's like, how do I compare that to another asset? So the purpose of the movie is to very much answer the biggest question, which is, why not buy term and invest the difference? And to properly compare that, we need to understand opportunity costs. We need to understand all the benefits and be able to articulate it. I think the movie is the best way to do that. It's also a way for me to honor people that have gone before us and also be able to bring in experts that can communicate. So that is the overview of why the movie. It's to really, in a powerful leverage way, provide value in the information, but leverage it via video, because not a lot of people have that. That is the purpose of it. And we have just wrapped up the video shooting. So we've have many great speakers, Garrett Gunderson, Jason Sanger, Dr. Wade Fowle is probably going to make an appearance, Barry Dyke, and many others who have participated on my podcast and in this movie project to really articulate some powerful messages. And the movie will just translate that in a powerful way. When it can be expected, 2022 is going to be the year. And what I'm being told, everything takes more time and money than you think. But the hope is to have a good idea, rough draft by the end of this quarter. And my hope is that we can have the launch in quarter 2 or quarter 3 of 2022.
Very exciting.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Really looking forward to that. Another question I have kind of jumps back to what you were discussing earlier. Your first, I guess you're not your chicken job, but your job at the bank.
Yep.
And I kind of want to know, how did you build? I guess because of the platform you were on, you kind of had to wake up and just put yourself in the confidence that you have. But how about for those who don't have that platform to start building their confidence, and those who really only have, the warm market as where to begin with, and so what is your advice on that? And
that's a great question. One of the things that I was committed to when I got a job at a bank is to be as valuable as possible. So I made $8 an hour till the day I left the bank. That is not articulated a lot. And a lot of times people should say, wait, you did a lot. Like, you worked for free. I went to networking events that I didn't get paid for. And the first initial reaction that people get are, why didn't you get paid more money? Or why didn't you go get another job and all this stuff? I intentionally turned down jobs that I could make twice as much because I was in an environment that I could become valuable. And it goes back to that value leveraging concept that I shared with you. I knew at 19, 20 years old, I was not very valuable. I didn't know much. I wasn't good with people. I didn't know anything about money. But the bank was the institution that I could learn all of those. And it could put me in a position where I could learn at an accelerated space. So the first part of your question is, I believe that confidence comes from competency. And I think a lot of times we need to do a self-audit and say, what value are we providing in the world? Like, how are people better off because I'm in their life? Right now, it's, you could be impacted by our content. You could go and use our company. You could read my book. Like, there's so many things that you can see now, but early on, I had none of that. I was learning value by the specialized knowledge, understanding how money works, understanding how opportunity cost works, understanding how the banking institutions worked. And that understanding translated into confidence because it's like, now I understand this, I can explain it, and I'm more valuable a year in versus when I first got started. The other thing that I don't share a lot is I almost got fired from the bank. Not from not caring, because it was really hard for me to learn all these things. I worked a Monday and Friday. So I learned everything Monday and forgot it by Friday, and that cycle continued. And it was one of those things that I had a manager, her name was Dorothy. She's the sweetest lady of all time. And she essentially believed in me and went to bat for me and said, Caleb, we're not going to let you go even though you've made some mistakes, because I believe in you. And so I want people to know that I wasn't this superstar kid. Like, I struggle to this day with reading. Learning is really tough for me. Spelling is difficult. I made mistakes. And if you had asked anybody when I first started at the bank, they would have been like, I don't know if Caleb's going to make it. But everyone that knew me at the bank knew that I loved the business and that I worked hard and I put in the work, and I would work for free because I knew that money followed value. And so the reason I even got into the opportunity to take over the bank's investment department is I started volunteering in different departments, worked as the assistant, and again, worked many hours for free. And so my encouragement to people is do a self-audit of yourself and ask the question, are you providing value, or who do you need to learn from, or what do you need to do to be as valuable as possible? If you're in this industry, you have to double down on how do I create competency, because competency creates confidence, and how do I learn how to be as approachable and articulate. And that's really surrounding yourself with people, mentorship, learning, investing in courses and things that can elevate that. And that's an investment in yourself. Once you get to that, then the next part is the leverage piece. And that's why I ended up leaving the bank and writing a book and doing the podcast, is I knew the best way to get this message out was to create a platform where this could be shared. And so it could be as easy as sharing a video, or sharing a podcast, or sharing a book that you believe in. That's a form of leverage because you're doing one action that could be to many. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but like, that was the mindset behind the bank and how I could translate into really, like, I was just at the right place, and I was really the only person that had the ability to take over the investment department. But that was because a year before that, I worked for free and worked my butt off to provide value to our investment officer. And it just happened to be when that person left, I was the person that had to step in just because I knew what was going on.
Well, did you ever have moments where you were just super discouraged?
Yeah,
And yeah,
every day.
and
No, I'm a optimist, but I remember there was a day that I was working with a friend who we were like this close. It was a small little policy, and I worked so hard for this, went through underwriting, and I think it was like a $3,500 policy. Okay, so it's great, but it's like looking at what we do today, we wouldn't even like do a permanent life insurance for this person. And I remember, delivering the policy, and this, I forget if they got an approval and they needed to sign or something. And I remember getting a call from my friend, and I was driving at the time, and he said, "Hey, Caleb, like, I just want you to know I really appreciate you, but after talking to some of my friends and family, I don't want to do this." And it felt like someone just like kicked me in the gut, because what he was saying is, "I appreciate you, but after talking to my friends and family, I realized that I would not be better off working with you." And that could also be translated into, "I don't want to work with you because I would be better off listening to my friends and family." And I'm not mad at this person. I'm actually really grateful for that experience, because it makes me way more empathetic for what people experience. But I felt, and I was like, why the heck am I doing this? Like, I'm making $8 an hour. I'm like begging people, and people think I'm scamming them and ripping them off. I'm like, I don't know, like, why don't I just go work for somebody and have work-life balance, because this is way too hard to get paid nothing. And I'm just grateful for that moment, because you just have to push through.
Yes.
And I'm grateful that I didn't give up. But there were many times where I'm like, I don't get this. And I was very close to picking a different industry, because I had natural giftings. And it's frustrating when you know you're gifted and you're making nothing and no one believes in you. And I'm not saying no one believed in me, but it's like we weren't getting any traction. So I'm definitely empathetic to that. And I think it's the person that can stick with it and continue to double down and invest in themselves are going to be the people that will be able to serve a ton of people and provide a ton of value in the future.
thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for sharing that, Caleb. So my question for you is pretty much like towards the beginning of your journey up until you wrote the AN Asset book. So how did you come upon this concept, aka the infinite banking concept? Like, how did that come upon? You came across that. How did you receive it initially? Did you understand it right away and then was sold on it right away, or did you have any were you skeptical about it, hesitant about it?
Yep. So I went to a conference in Minnesota, and the conference was simply to help people pay off debt. And they used the Dave Ramsey snowball method, but they also used life insurance. And before that day, I didn't know anything about life insurance. Like, I believed in term, but I didn't know that like you would want to pay off debt using life insurance. And so fast forward, I ended up like being super curious, asking a kind of questions. I think I bothered the instructor because I asked him so many questions. And he just made a statement to me that stuck with me. He said, "Caleb, it's clear that you don't understand life insurance. So I would recommend you go learn about life insurance before you bother me," kind of deal. Like, stop asking me questions. Like, you don't believe in life insurance, and it's really clear in the questions that you're asking. And so I took that to heart. I was like, all right, I'm going to go all in on the life insurance piece and learn everything that I can. And that's what happened. I mean, I went to an insurance company and spent a day sitting in their call center, listening to them take calls, sat with actuaries. I met with CEOs of companies and asked them questions. And I don't think a lot of people have gone that route, but I was like so committed to learning this. And that's when I got introduced to the infinite banking concept and got introduced to other people that talked about overfunded. And the epiphany for me was this. Right now, we live in a world where people are saying you need to choose between one or the other. You need to choose between future compound growth and controlling your money in like a savings account. And I had this dilemma of like, I believe in compound interest, and I believe if I put my money in a Roth IRA 40 years from now, I'm going to be a millionaire. I really believe that math. I believe that people can do that. But the opportunity cost, like the cost that would cost me, is like I would not have that money to invest in real estate and myself and future businesses. But if I put my money in a savings account, I would have control of that money, but over 40 years, that money wouldn't be growing for me. So the epiphany that I had was like, oh, life insurance is not an investment, but when set up and used properly, it can be a phenomenal place to store capital, give me all the benefits. And I can articulate this way more. Like there's so many more benefits than just compound interest. Life insurance is an incredible place to have your money. And you're not saying, see ya for 35 years for your money. Like you can utilize it, especially if you can invest in opportunities that can, what we call asset-based activities. It's like that they're helping you live more intentional. And so when I understood that, I was like, okay, this is not being articulated because even the people that are trying to mentor me are not communicating this to the level that I just understood. And so that's when I knew that we needed to do something about it. And I knew that a book and a podcast were going to be the ways that I could try to articulate this. And that's why the book was written, but that's why I became a super big believer. Life insurance is not an investment. I always thought it was an investment or an investment alternative. That's why I had like this check in my spirit. But now I'm realizing that no, it's just a phenomenal asset that you could store your money in. That long term is going to be way better than a savings account, but it gives you control that's way better than any investment.
Thank you for that. I think pretty much that's the key answer right there. Yeah.
All right. Let's move to further four, Johnny. You have any questions for Caleb?
Yeah, I think I asked this question kind of for the whole group at InfiniteJoy Financial, but you know we're passionate about equipping families with a proper financial literacy and stewardship. One of our focuses is helping families set up the and asset for their children. So I have a two-part question. You know, what are your thoughts regarding the strategy? And knowing what you know now, what would you say to parents who are working to build a bright future for their kids?
So say the first question again.
What are your thoughts regarding the strategy as we're, using this within InfiniteJoy Financial, our group right here, in setting up our futures for our kids, for our clients' kids?
Yeah. So I'm going to answer this a different way, and hopefully this answers your questions. I think life insurance is a phenomenal place to save money for yourself personally, for business owners, and for your kids. Because for kids, it's like the college plan that you don't need to go to college to benefit for, and it's the one that keeps on giving. So I think there's a ton of value in that. I think the mistake that I see people making is they're financially ruined. They have spending problems, which ultimately comes down to a heart issue. And they think that the life insurance or the and asset is going to be the solution to those. And that's where I want to be very careful, because I think for families and business owners and kids to really maximize this, it's a two-part question. Part number one is we need to know the basics of saving your money, delayed gratification, what compound interest works, what an investment is versus what a savings is, and we need to commit to paying ourselves first. If someone's committed to doing that, they're committed to saving their money for the future, and they understand the importance of control, the and asset is the very best place for them to store their money because it gives them the best of both worlds. If someone's not committed to the fundamentals of saving and control and that, life insurance is just a band-aid that is not going to solve anyone's problems. And this might sound funny, but some people think life insurance is going to solve their marriage problems or their business problems. And it's like someone getting life insurance, but at the end of the day, they are losing their job and they think life insurance is going to protect them from losing their job. No, it's amazing when you have money flowing in, but it's not great. It's not the god of your life kind of deal. And so that's what I would say is if someone's committed to the legacy, lifetime growth, control, life insurance, when set up and used properly, is the greatest place to be saving your money for families, kids, and business owners. The mistake that I make is it's overemphasized being like the only financial tool. People bite off too much that they can chew before they get started, and then they blame the product versus the strategy and the process was really the issue. Did that answer your question, or can I maybe have a clarifying question or an answer?
No, I think that does. Tyson or Tan, do y'all have any subsequent questions regarding that initial?
No, I think I'm glad that Caleb emphasized on that aspect. I think is right on the spot, because at the end of the day, life insurance or the end asset is just a tool, right? And then sometimes I think it's I learned this, like, there's an order of prosperity or an order of wealth, right? If you don't produce, right, you can't go to the next step, which is the protection, right? I go production, protection, right? Profit, and then prosper, right? And so if you're missing one of those two big component or pillars, then and you focus on just life insurance, it does not save your marriage or get you where you want to go, right?
It's an but you need to have it be an and to something. So that's
right.
something to think about. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep. So
another question I have for you is, like, for during your process and your journey thus far, how many death claims have you delivered, and what was that experience like?
Yeah. So I just interviewed a guy who's paid over 80 death claims, and his perspective is probably a lot different than mine. I've paid out one death claim, happened to be one of my best friends and the co-founder to BetterWealth. And he was one of my first clients, was super healthy, was like a second father to me, and got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, died, leaving 3 kids under the age of 18 and his beautiful wife. And that showed me, when we talk about what's the true value, or it's almost impossible to show you or measure the true value of life insurance when set up and used properly, is my friend, Greg, he utilized their policy, and I would say had some very intentional moments while he was alive, understood how it was going to translate for the future. But at the end of the day, it showed up super powerfully for when he did pass away for their family. And so, to answer your question, I've had one claim, learned a lot, and my hope is that I don't have any other claims anytime soon, but I know that everyone that I insure will die eventually, and that's why I'm a big fan of insuring or protecting a permanent event.
I love it. Thanks for that answer. And my last question, and this is for me personally, what would any advice you would have for someone like me who's in an industry that I'm not in love with, and as I'm learning the end asset, and as I'm going through this journey with Tyson and everyone on this call, what kind of advice would you have for me, or somebody who's in the same shoes as me, wanting to make that switch and get into this industry, the financial industry, and life insurance and the end asset?
It's very, very interesting. I grabbed a piece of paper while you were talking. I don't know, for those of you that are not watching this, I'm showing a piece of paper with my name scribbled very poorly on the top of the page. And then each box, and I have 25 boxes checked off. And then my mission statement, which is to help people see and reach their highest potential. Each box represents a year of your life. Okay? So how I would answer your question is, I would have you do this exercise. And number one, it's impossible to answer your question if you don't have a mission or a deeper reason to live versus just making money. And so we would go through your roles and responsibilities. We would go through what are your values? We would go through that. If money wasn't an issue, what would you be doing? And we would start crafting what is you could call it your result statement, your mission statement. Why do you get up every day? And then each box represents a year of your life. It's the ultimate reminder that we only live once. And I've never met somebody that regretted going after their dream. And so, to answer your question, we need to be wise, and we need to understand, hey, if you have a great job that you're providing income, we have to understand, our role might be a husband, and part of that role means provider. And so what I'm not telling you is to just not take that to heart and take that responsibility. But maybe being a provider doesn't mean be making X. Maybe you could be making a little bit something different, provide, and be in an environment that you're getting paid so much more, whether it's in money or just in loving what you do. So I say that, not knowing your situation, making sure that you want to cover your basis, but life is so incredibly short to work and be with people and environments that don't draw you closer to your mission. And I would figure out everything that I could to make sure that every day I could be in an environment that I am loving. I'm summarizing what Steve Jobs said at one of his talks at Stanford. He said, any day, any time that I would look in the mirror every day and be like, I'm not excited, I knew that something had to change. And I resonate with that because a commitment that I made early on in my life is that I would not live life with regret. I would not live life with regret. And I find a lot of people living life with regret because they're not willing to lean into their fears and they're not willing to lean into what they really want. So in summary, I would get really clear on why you want to do what you're doing. I would get clear on your roles and responsibilities. I would make sure that you don't disrespect some of the roles that God has put in your life, but I would figure out everything in your power to get every day you getting closer to walking out that mission that God has called you to do. And you will find fulfillment. You might make less money, but you will be a happier person. And I believe that will translate into being wealthier and to serving more people in the future.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. That was a very thoughtful, deep question. And if there's anything that I can personally do for you, let me know. I think you know how to get a hold of me, but I want to support you in any way I can.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So Caleb, it comes down to the last question for this episode.
Amazing how time flies when you're having fun. You know?
I know, right? It's crazy. But I think you may recognize this question. This is your last day on Earth, and you're surrounded by family and loved ones, right? And so, what would be your message or some of the lessons or the legacy? Of course, thinking that you want to basically transfer to your next generation.
Yeah, and part of the question is I can't give them anything, a book, video.
That's right.
It's one last conversation. So one of the best quotes that I've heard growing up in my life was a guy by the name of Andy Stanley. He was at a leadership conference and he said, the value of your life is always measured by how much of it was given away. So in other words, that our life value is not the successes, not the money, not the accolades. It's what we've given. And to bring this back to a spiritual level, the most valuable human being that has ever walked the planet of the earth is Jesus Christ, because he gave of his life and ultimately is the greatest servant of all. Okay. So that is something that is like, that's amazing. We none of us will be able to hold a candle to that, but we should aspire to be that. And so what I would pass on is just number one, gratitude and a reminder that life is incredibly short and that the value of your life, my future kid's wife, my wife's life is always measured by how much of it was given for the gospel, for God, for people. And I think it also aligns very closely with our greatest two commandments, is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and to love people as yourself. I think that is very in line with this concept of your value coming from being the ultimate servant.
Well, there's no better way to end this podcast with that quote. And, we are so grateful that our path crossed this year. And then now, I think I'm just excited for the future and how we can work together and impact, people live together. And, I believe this. I mean, you are so unique. I mean, everybody have basic unique given talents, and God's give you a big dream. And I'm so happy that you are living out his dream for you and impacting people in the same time. So we're super happy and we're super grateful for all you do for the public, but for us, our group along this journey is super unique. And I mean, I can't say thank you enough.
Can I articulate one more thing, maybe one more nugget to think about? Would that be all right with you?
Sure.
So one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about, and if you read the and asset, you'll know a word that comes up a lot is efficiency. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways that I can articulate efficiency is getting a desired result and while minimizing all the unnecessary time, energy, effort that gets to that result. So an example of this is like me walking to you versus me flying to you. The result is being with you. and one just takes a lot longer than the other. A lot of people, number one, don't even know where they want to go. If that's you, I would do everything in your power to figure out what do you really want. Because financial advisors, Wall Street, everyone will have an opinion, but the most important opinion is your opinion and figuring out the metric, figuring out the compass. Because if you have a wrong compass, it doesn't matter what you're doing, your destination is not going to be what you want. So first and foremost, in a framework, it's getting really, really clear. If money's not an issue, what would you be doing? And making sure that that becomes the ultimate metric. That becomes a thing, the goal, the reason that you're going to be making decisions. The second thing is doing an efficiency audit. And an efficiency audit essentially looks at your time, your resources, your relationships, your talents, and saying, are these aligned? Are these being best used to get to where I want to go? And I've not met a single person that checks all the boxes of being efficient. Where I get fired up, and if you're a coach or an advisor watching this, you should get fired up, is we have the ability to help people clarify where they want to go, because most people haven't done a lot of thinking. And if there's one thing that we can do for someone, it's help them identify that. So that's really neat and super fulfilling. And you're going to fall in love with the process. But then the second thing is, once we help people identify where they want to go, the efficiency essentially says, what is getting in the way? What's friction is getting in someone's way to helping them get to where they want to go? You want to just talk about money. This is a multi-trillion-dollar industry that people are being inefficient on. People, if they get clear on where they want to go and you help them understand how they're looking at their debt, where they're saving their money, where they're investing, the money that they're making, they're going to realize that their money is not reflecting where they want to go. And efficiency would say, let's put that in a place. Let's get that working for you in a way that you can live the life that you want to live. So the reason I say that is I think this is a framework that, the and asset and my story may be intimidating or whatnot, but just think about these two things. If we can help people identify what they want and we can help them eliminate anything that's getting in the way of getting that, we're becoming super valuable. And people not only can get behind that because it's easy to understand, but they will send you referrals and be your biggest fan because they tie you into some of the two most significant things in their life. The biggest mistake people make in our space is they try to do efficiencies or they try to sell products without actually creating a difference or communicating that difference. And if that's the case, I would very much encourage you to take a step back, answer those two questions for your own life, and make that be what your practice and business is about. And I think you will find massive success, and you'll find that you're not hesitant to talk to someone. Like, you can't wait to talk to somebody because you don't have a product that you're selling them. You literally have a process that's going to help them be more effective and show up more powerfully in their life.
That's awesome. And what is no better timing than this time, right? Finish up 2021 and get ready for 2022. And so definitely thank you for that 2 cents. So,
amen. All right, guys. Well, I am grateful that you're in my life, and I'm looking forward to seeing amazing things. And I just want to say thank you to everyone that's taken the time to watch this video or listen to this. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and you're in very good hands.